You think you're improving. You've got your journal, your morning routine, your new habits, your better self checklist. You've convinced yourself that you're leveling up. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people aren't transforming. They're just repeating. You're not upgrading who you are. You're updating the software on a version of yourself that doesn't exist anymore. You're still measuring progress, using last year's data. And that's why no matter how hard you try, you keep ending up in the same mental loop. One where you feel like you're evolving, but deep down, you know you're not. It's not discipline you're missing. It's vision. You're trying to change someone you don't even see clearly anymore. You're fixing an old reflection instead of meeting who you've become. The truth is, most of us live inside mental snapshots, frozen versions of ourselves built from memory, habit, and repetition. We assume we already know who we are, what works for us, what we're capable of. But that assumption kills growth faster than failure ever could. There's a word for escaping that blindness. Shoshin, the Zen concept of beginner's mind. It's not about being naive or starting from zero. It's about seeing without distortion. Shoshin means wiping away the mental labels and meeting the present version of yourself, as if for the first time. No judgment, no memory, no bias, just awareness. And when you do that, you realize something terrifying but freeing. You've been running your life on autopilot. Think about it. You repeat the same morning routine, the same rituals, the same motivational phrases that once worked for you, but now they feel dull. That's because they were designed for the person you used to be. You're following a manual written by a stranger, your past self. And every time you optimize, you're polishing an outdated model. The result? You don't evolve, you maintain. You stay efficient at staying the same. This winter, I want to break that pattern with you. Because winter has a way of showing us who we really are. When the sunlight fades, when comfort disappears, when motivation evaporates, what's left is raw honesty. No performance, no energy from the outside world. Just you, your habits, and the truth about whether they actually work. That's why ancient monks, samurai, and warriors trained hardest in the cold months. It wasn't about pain tolerance, it was about truth. This video isn't about adding new habits or stacking new routines. It's about stripping away everything that makes you blind to the real version of yourself. We're going to unlearn confidence, destroy expertise, and open your mind the way a blade is sharpened by removing what's dull. I'm going to show you how Shoshin, the beginner's mind, turns self-improvement from a checklist into a weapon. And by the end of this, you'll understand why the real transformation doesn't start when things feel new. It starts when you realize how much you've stopped seeing. The brain's trap, confidence, becomes a cage. Your brain is an incredible machine, but it's lazy in a very specific way. It loves to organize everything you learn into neat little folders, because efficiency means survival. Every time you master something, your brain stamps it with a label and files it away. Morning, routine, filed. Discipline, filed. How to build habits, filed. It feels productive, like progress. But the moment that file is created, something dangerous happens. Your brain stops watching. It assumes the job is done. It closes the door. This system worked beautifully in evolution, when learning meant remembering which berries were safe or how to start a fire. But in the modern world where improvement is constant, nuanced, and self-directed, that same system is a trap. Because once your brain thinks it knows something, it stops questioning it. You stop noticing new details. You stop seeing the present moment. You're not living, you're referencing. Let me show you exactly how this plays out. You've seen dozens of videos about waking up early. You've tried different alarm clocks, different routines, even military hacks. You still hit snooze. That's not because you lack discipline. It's because your brain has built a full wake up early file. So the moment you see another video on the topic, it doesn't absorb it, it just nods. Yeah, I know this already. You're not learning, you're running an old script. This is why the self-improvement world feels repetitive after a while. Every new piece of advice feels like something you've already heard, because your brain has turned you into a curator of your own past knowledge. You're constantly checking your mental library instead of experiencing reality. You're not reading new pages, you're rereading old notes, and it gets worse. The more confident you are about a topic, the tighter that file locks shut. Confidence is supposed to be power, but here, it becomes a cage. You think you're an expert in discipline, then your brain will automatically filter out anything that challenges your current beliefs. You think you already understand focus, then you'll stop noticing the subtle ways you sabotage it. Confidence convinces you that your way works, and once that belief takes root, you stop testing it. You stop evolving. You've become an expert, not in growth, but in defending the way you've always done things. That's why most self-improvement arcs die around the third week. You start strong, full of motivation, new energy, new systems, but your brain quietly checks its files and says, "Ah yes, this again. You've done this before." It knows how this story ends, so it stops engaging fully. You go through the motions, your excitement fades, and you start labeling yourself. I'm inconsistent, I'm undisciplined, I lose motivation easily. But those labels are just new folders, new files that keep you trapped. Your growth doesn't die from failure. It dies from overconfidence, from the illusion that you already know how to grow. And here's the brutal truth. You can't fill a cup that's already full. Ancient warriors understood this instinctively. After a few victories, most swordsmen believed they'd figured out combat. They created mental files for their moves, and that's exactly when they died. Because confidence closes awareness. You stop reacting to the present, and you start reenacting the past. You swing the sword you remember, not the one you need. The same thing happens in your life. You argue with your partner, using words that worked once, not the ones that are needed now. You chase productivity systems that fit last year's version of your workload. You use motivational tools built for a mindset you've already outgrown. You're fighting today's battles with yesterday's weapons. That's why your brain feels like it's working against you when you try to change. It's not sabotaging you. It's protecting its files. It's defending your old patterns, convinced they're what keep you safe. But growth demands danger. It demands questioning, discomfort, chaos, the exact things your brain avoids. So before you add one more new habit or download another self-help app, ask yourself this: are you actually learning something new, or are you just rehearsing something familiar? Because the difference between those two is everything. And this brings us to the mindset that changed warriors, philosophers, and artists across centuries. The one principle that breaks the file system open. The only way to stay alive in growth is to kill the illusion of mastery, to walk into every situation like it's your first, to see with eyes that haven't already decided what they're seeing. That's Shoshin, the beginner's mind. And the man who lived it better than anyone was a warrior who survived over 60 life or death duels, Miyamoto Musashi. But Musashi wasn't just a swordsman. He was a man who refused to let expertise kill curiosity. While others died defending what they thought they knew, Musashi kept winning because he never closed his file. He fought every duel like his first, fresh eyes, empty mind, no assumptions. The next section reveals exactly how he did it, and how that same mindset can make your brain unstoppable. The warrior who never closed his mind. Let's go back to 17th century Japan. Two men stand on a riverbank at dawn. One of them is Miyamoto Musashi, barefoot, calm, holding a wooden sword he carved from an oar. The other is a decorated samurai, armed with steel, surrounded by spectators expecting blood. Musashi is late, deliberately late, studying every ripple in the water as if it's part of the fight. When the duel begins, it's over in seconds, one strike. His opponent falls. Silence. No celebration, no gloating, just observation. Musashi adjusts his stance, his breathing, like he's taking mental notes. Then he leaves, because for him, every duel wasn't a victory. It was a study session. Musashi fought over 60 of those duels, real ones. No rules, no referees, just life or death. And while most swordsmen would become legends after 5 or 10 wins, Musashi treated each fight as practice. He refused to label himself an expert, even when everyone else did. Why? Because the moment you think you've figured it out, you stop seeing clearly. You stop watching reality, and you start replaying memory. That's what kills you. Not the enemy's sword, but your own certainty. After 20 victories, most men thought they'd mastered combat. They began repeating patterns, perfecting technique, analyzing strategy, and dying in fight 21. Musashi kept winning because he never trusted mastery. His philosophy was simple. In all things, have no preference. Meaning, stay empty. See what's in front of you, not what your memory wants to see. This is the essence of Shoshin, beginner's mind, not ignorance, but clarity. The willingness to meet every moment as if you've never seen it before. It's not about forgetting what you know, it's about refusing to let knowledge blind you. Think about how that applies to your life. You walk into your job already knowing how meetings go. You approach your partner, already knowing how arguments end. You hit the gym, already knowing your routine. You're no longer observing reality, you're rehearsing it. You stopped fighting the actual battle and started fighting your assumptions about it. Musashi didn't walk into a fight thinking, I know how to win. He walked in thinking, I know nothing about this man, this field, this moment. And that empty mind gave him an advantage that experts lost: adaptability. He could see what others couldn't. When they swung with confidence, he waited with curiosity. When they relied on technique, he relied on awareness. And awareness always beats memory. That's why so many of your disciplined habits eventually stop working. You repeat them mechanically, without awareness. You're not really training, you're reenacting. You lift weights the same way, eat the same meals, follow the same routines, but you stopped watching your own form. You've become a veteran who no longer feels the sword in his hand. And here's the thing, Musashi wasn't unique. He just gave a name and method to something universal. Across time, in every culture, the people who change history all share one trait. They never close their mind. They keep questioning, observing, adjusting. They never confuse confidence with truth. Most people die in the same duel over and over, the duel against their own ego. They stop paying attention because paying attention feels humbling. They want to feel like experts. They want to believe their files are complete. But the beginner's mind doesn't crave completion. It craves clarity. Musashi embodied that truth until the end of his life. When he retired from fighting, he wrote The Book of Five Rings, one of the most profound works on mastery ever written. And even in that book, he never calls himself a master. Instead, he writes, "The way is in training, not victory, not fame. Training, meaning, the path itself is the point. The practice is the purpose." You can see this same principle echoed by people who never held a sword. People separated by continents, languages, and centuries, but connected by the same mindset. Philosophers, artists, and inventors, who all discovered Shoshin. without ever hearing the word. Socrates, who humbled entire schools of philosophy with one sentence, "I know that I know nothing." Bruce Lee, who broke his own style to create something freer, more real. Leonardo da Vinci, who questioned how birds fly at 60, like a child seeing the sky for the first time. None of them were taught beginner's mind. They lived it. And that's where we go next, into the proof that Shoshin isn't just a Japanese idea. It's a universal law that every genius stumbled upon in their own way. And once you see that pattern, you'll start to understand something powerful. The moment you think you know, you've already stopped growing. The universal law of beginners. Shoshin wasn't some rare gift that only Zen monks or samurai discovered. The beginner's mind has appeared again and again across history, hidden inside the stories of people who refused to let certainty blind them. They may never have called it by name, but they lived it in every decision, every failure, every reinvention. Take Albert Einstein, for example. Everyone remembers him as the genius with the messy hair, the father of relativity, the man whose brain supposedly worked on a different level. But what most people forget is that Einstein spent years as a patent clerk. His job was literally to review other people's inventions, ideas already labeled, filed, and supposedly complete. Yet instead of copying them, he looked at every invention as if it were a puzzle missing a piece. While everyone else accepted the established laws of physics as sacred, Einstein asked the most childlike question possible. What would the world look like if I rode alongside a beam of light? That question changed science forever. It wasn't a question born of expertise. It was curiosity. Pure, uncomfortable, almost naive curiosity. The kind that experts are too proud to ask. Einstein wasn't the smartest man in the room. He was the most open one. He saw what others couldn't, because he was willing to look like he didn't know. That's beginner's mind in motion, questioning what everyone else calls settled. Now look at Steve Jobs. When he returned to Apple in 1997, the company was collapsing. It had hundreds of products, all competing with each other. The expert move would have been to optimize, to tweak, refine, manage. Jobs did the opposite. He walked into the design lab and started asking beginner questions. Why do we make this? Does it still matter? What if we deleted everything and started fresh? Within months, he cut 70% of Apple's product line. Experts thought he was insane, but that emptying out, that Shoshin moment, gave birth to the iMac, the iPod, and eventually the iPhone. Jobs wasn't worshipping minimalism. He was practicing awareness. He didn't assume he knew what worked. He questioned everything, even his own success. He said, "It's only by saying no that you can concentrate on what truly matters." That's not business advice. That's Zen discipline disguised as product design. Or think about Marie Curie, the scientist who discovered radium. At a time when every academic lab dismissed the faint blue glow coming from uranium ore as irrelevant, she refused to ignore it. Experts told her she was wasting her time, but instead of trusting authority, she trusted her curiosity. She studied the glow, alone in the dark, for years, until she uncovered radioactivity, a force that would transform medicine and physics forever. Her gift wasn't just intellect. It was the courage to stay in the unknown. That's the heart of beginner's mind. The refusal to accept the easy answers. Even in the arts, you see it. Pablo Picasso mastered classical realism by age 14, but then he threw it away. He started painting like a child again. Distorted faces, broken perspectives, impossible shapes. Critics said he'd gone mad, but Picasso understood something few artists did. Mastery is a trap. Once you've learned all the rules, you stop seeing beyond them. So he deliberately unlearned. He once said, "It took me 4 years to paint like Raphael, but a lifetime to paint like a child." That is the beginner's mind, the bravery to forget in order to see. And even in modern times, the same pattern repeats. Elon Musk taught himself rocket science, not by reading textbooks, but by questioning experts who told him his goals were impossible. When NASA said, "It can't be done without billions," he asked, "Why?" When engineers said, "This material won't work," he asked, "What if it could?" Every innovation at SpaceX and Tesla came from refusing to inherit other people's limitations. Shoshin, in its purest form, questioned every file, even the ones labeled impossible. The thread connecting all of them, Einstein, Jobs, Curie, Picasso, Musk, isn't intelligence or talent, it's emptiness. Each of them had the humility to see reality fresh. They weren't chasing novelty for ego's sake. They were clearing space for discovery. They weren't blinded by what they already knew. See, the expert mind moves fast but shallow. It checks boxes, runs on assumptions, and avoids looking stupid. The beginner's mind moves slower but deeper. It asks, "What if I'm wrong?" It notices small details others miss. It's willing to look foolish in the pursuit of truth. That's why breakthroughs often come from outsiders, people too new to know what's impossible. So here's the real question. When was the last time you asked something so basic that it made you feel dumb? When was the last time you threw away a method that always worked, just to see if it still does? Because every time you refuse to ask, you reinforce a file. Every time you defend your certainty, you stop evolving. The people who change the world aren't the ones with the most knowledge. They're the ones with the most open eyes. But how do you reopen yours after years of repetition? How do you break the file system in your own head and see life like it's brand new again? That's where Shoshin becomes practical, not just a concept, but a daily practice. In the next section, you'll learn the 3 layers of training that reopen your mind, challenge your assumptions, and make curiosity your default state. The 3 layers of reopening the mind. Understanding Shoshin is one thing, living it. That's where most people fail. You can't just decide to have a beginner's mind. You have to train it. You have to deliberately break the grooves your brain carved from years of repetition. And that doesn't happen through meditation quotes or motivational reels. It happens through daily friction, through interrupting your own certainty. The truth is, you've built mental muscle memory. You wake up, scroll your phone the same way, make coffee the same way, work, react, reply, repeat. You're not lazy, you're efficient. But that efficiency has made you blind. So the goal isn't to add new habits. It's to reopen the files you've closed, to slow down your expertise long enough to let curiosity walk back in. Here's the system. 3 layers, 3 ways to retrain your perception. Do them in order, and you'll feel your brain resist. That's how you know it's working. Layer 1, the daily disruption. Every day, pick one thing you do automatically. Something so routine you barely notice it. It could be brushing your teeth, checking emails, your commute, or even how you talk to someone close to you. Then change one small thing. Brush with your non-dominant hand. Take a new route to work. Use silence instead of filler words in conversation. Anything that forces awareness. It sounds childish, but what it does is profound. You're retraining your brain to notice again. When you disrupt autopilot, you create a gap, and in that gap, consciousness returns. For a few seconds, you're not living from memory. You're living from attention. At first, it feels awkward. You'll spill coffee, forget your keys, maybe get frustrated. That's not failure, that's awakening. Because awkwardness is the signal that your expert mind is loosening its grip. Every time you feel discomfort in a habit, it means you've interrupted the old file. You're rewriting it consciously. Try it once a day. 1 disruption. By the end of the week, you'll start noticing details you've ignored for years. How your coffee actually tastes. How your tone changes when you're tired. How your posture shifts when you're stressed. You'll realize how much of your life was happening without you being there for it. Layer 2, borrowing eyes from the beginners. Once a week, find someone who's still bad at what you're good at. Watch them, not to correct them, but to learn from them. Maybe it's a new co-worker fumbling through their first project. Maybe it's a friend who just started working out, awkwardly figuring out form. Or a rookie artist experimenting with messy, unrefined sketches. Experts see flaws. Beginners see possibilities. Watch them long enough, and you'll notice something your brain stopped noticing years ago. Options. They'll try things that don't make sense. Break rules that you didn't even realize you'd built. 90% of what they do won't work, but the 10% that does will reveal where your own expertise has blinded you. This is how you recover creative vision. You don't just copy the beginner's mistakes, you extract their freedom. They don't carry your history, so they explore what you've dismissed. Their ignorance is their superpower. That's why some of the greatest innovators in history were outsiders. They entered fields they didn't belong to, saw the patterns the experts ignored, and reshaped the game. You can do that on a micro scale, every week. Watch, don't judge. Observe, don't teach. Curiosity is contagious if you stand close enough to it. Layer 3, the contradiction week. Once a month, pick one belief you hold with absolute certainty and live the opposite for 7 days. Not because the opposite is right, but because you need to see if your truth still holds up under new conditions. If you believe waking up early is sacred, try late nights. If you swear by cold showers, take warm ones. If you think fasting makes you focused, eat breakfast every day. If you pride yourself on always being productive, schedule a day of deliberate laziness. Your brain will rebel instantly. It'll call this a waste of time. It'll tell you you're losing progress. That voice is your ego, the expert defending its files. Ignore it. The goal isn't to destroy what works. It's to test whether it still works. Here's the hidden benefit. Sometimes your opposite week won't prove you wrong. It'll prove you right, but for better reasons. You'll rediscover why a method matters instead of repeating it out of habit. And other times, the opposite will quietly expose your blind spots. You'll realize that rules you thought were sacred were just personal preferences that stopped fitting your current life. When you stack these 3 layers, disruption, observation, contradiction, something begins to shift. Your awareness sharpens. The fog of repetition starts to lift. You stop defending your systems and start questioning them. And that's when growth becomes real again. Most people think transformation is about adding more habits, more tools, more knowledge. But the truth is, evolution starts with subtraction, removing the layers of certainty that block perception. You're not building a new you. You're uncovering the one that was buried beneath automation. And there's no better environment for this process than winter. Because winter doesn't care about your motivation or your systems. It strips everything down to what actually works. When the warmth disappears, when comfort is gone, when your environment stops helping, what's left is truth. That's why the masters of old trained hardest in the cold months, not to prove how tough they were, but because winter reveals what the other seasons hide. And in the next section, you'll see why winter is the most honest teacher you'll ever have. Winter, the season that exposes the truth. Most people think winter is the enemy. It's cold, slow, heavy. The sun disappears, energy fades, motivation dies. But winter isn't your enemy. It's your mirror. It's the season that strips away every illusion you built when life was easy. Because comfort hides weakness, but discomfort exposes it instantly. Think about it. In summer, everything feels possible. You wake up early because the light hits your window. You feel productive because the weather is kind. You think your discipline is strong, but it's actually being carried by the environment. You mistake momentum for mastery. You're not driven. You're supported. Then winter arrives, the great equalizer. Suddenly there's no sunlight to cheer you up at 6 a.m. The air stings. Your bed feels like a trap, and your motivation evaporates. What's left is honesty. Every habit, every mindset, every routine gets exposed under the cold light of truth. Because when the world stops helping you, you find out if you can help yourself. That's why in ancient Japan, warriors trained hardest during kanjiko, or cold practice. It wasn't to build toughness, it was to remove illusion. When your fingers are numb and your breath turns to frost, you can't fake strength anymore. Your technique either works or it doesn't. Your mind either focuses or it shatters. The cold doesn't flatter, it reveals. Modern life never gives you that kind of feedback. The temperature's controlled, your coffee's preheated, your distractions are endless. You can keep performing productivity, faking growth, pretending control. But winter, literal or metaphorical, removes the performance layer. It forces you into confrontation with reality. When it's 6 a.m. and the room is freezing, you learn the difference between motivation and purpose. Motivation gets you started when it's easy. Purpose gets you moving when it's miserable. And that's why most people's self-improvement dies by February. Because their motivation was built on warmth, not truth. Here's something ancient martial arts masters understood. Comfort conceals inefficiency. When conditions are soft, bad habits hide behind speed, energy, and enthusiasm. But when the body slows down, when the cold steals comfort, inefficiency stands naked. You see the flaws clearly. You can't hide bad form behind adrenaline. You can't cover shallow breathing with excitement. Every movement tells the truth. That's not just martial arts. That's life. Winter strips away your shortcuts. You can't rely on external stimulation. No social buzz. No warm dopamine hits. So your systems face their final exam. Does your routine actually work? Or did it just feel nice when conditions were easy? Does your mental toughness survive when no one's watching? Do you still act with integrity when there's no applause, no reward, no warmth? Because here's the secret. Growth doesn't happen when it's easy. It happens when the easy version of you stops working. Winter teaches discipline that no podcast or self-help book ever could. It forces you to separate signal from noise, what's essential versus what's decorative. It shows you which habits are truly part of your foundation and which were just seasonal trends. Look at nature. Trees don't grow new branches in winter. They retract. They let go. They pull their energy inward, conserve strength, and prepare their roots for spring. They don't waste time pretending to bloom. They rebuild from the inside. That's what your winter season should be. Not a time of addition, but of honest subtraction. And when you train yourself to see like that, you stop dreading the cold. You start respecting it. You start craving it. Because it's the only season that doesn't lie to you. In summer, you can look productive. In winter, you can only be productive. In summer, your progress feels good. In winter, it is good, or it breaks. That's why most people fall apart when life gets cold. Emotionally, financially, spiritually. They think they're failing, but really, they're just meeting themselves without the costume. They're facing the version of themselves that comfort was protecting them from. So this winter, don't run from the discomfort. Use it. Step into the cold, literally or metaphorically, and treat it like a diagnostic test for your life. What systems hold up under pressure? What routines crumble? What beliefs start to sound hollow when you're tired and frozen? That's where truth lives, in the moments where pretending becomes impossible. Because when you walk through winter awake, you stop needing the sun to shine for you. You stop needing energy to come from outside. You start generating it from within. And that's what separates those who grow temporarily from those who evolve permanently. The people who truly transform don't wait for spring. They learn to use winter as their weapon, the season that strips them bare, breaks their illusions, and rebuilds them from the inside out. But the real challenge isn't surviving the cold. It's what happens after. When warmth returns and comfort tries to seduce you back into autopilot. Because the hardest test of all isn't hardship, its ease. And that's where the next section begins. The spring trap. How success quietly kills growth faster than failure ever could. The spring trap. How success quietly kills growth. Everyone loves spring. It's the season of light, of rebirth, of second chances. But psychologically, it's also the most dangerous time of year, because spring gives you something winter never will: comfort disguised as progress. It rewards you with energy, warmth, and optimism. You start feeling alive again, confident again. You tell yourself you've changed, that the hard season paid off. But that feeling, that's the trap. Spring tricks you into believing that your progress is permanent. The cold is gone, so you assume you've won. But what's really happened is the environment lifted the weight off your shoulders. Your discipline feels stronger because resistance disappeared. Your habits feel stable because the world stopped testing them. What you think is transformation is often just relief. That's why so many people relapse after a breakthrough. They think they've evolved, but all they've done is survive a season. When the pressure drops, so does their awareness. The same brain that fought for honesty in winter quietly slides back into autopilot. Old habits return, not as failures, but as comfort. The mind whispers, "You've earned this. Relax. You're good now." This is how growth dies, not through pain, but through comfort. Success seduces you faster than failure ever could, because failure hurts. It keeps you alert, but success feels safe. It makes you stop watching. It tells you you've found your way, that you no longer need to question it. The Zen masters warned about this centuries ago. They said enlightenment itself can become a new ego. You start identifying as the one who's awakened, and in that very thought you fall asleep again. The same thing happens in modern self-improvement. People say, "I found what works for me," as if that sentence isn't just another locked file. The moment you think something works forever, you stop evolving. You freeze in success. So how do you fight this? You build a system that keeps success from making you stupid. A ritual that protects your curiosity from comfort. Here's the one that works. The monthly audit. At the start of every month, take 10 minutes to write down 3 things you're currently confident about. Not random thoughts, certainties. Maybe it's my sleep schedule is perfect, or this diet works for me, or I'm great at managing stress now. Then question each one, ruthlessly. Ask yourself, has this truly been tested in new conditions? Did this method work because it's timeless, or because the season was favorable? If I had to do the opposite for a week, what would happen? The goal isn't to destroy your wins, it's to keep them alive. Because once you file a victory as solved, it starts decaying. You stop watching it. You stop nurturing it. You turn growth into memory. And memory doesn't evolve, it just fades. Look around, and you'll see it everywhere. Athletes who win once, and then disappear. Entrepreneurs who build one great company, and never innovate again. Artists who release one masterpiece, and spend the next decade chasing its ghost. They didn't fail because they got worse. They failed because success closed their eyes. And here's the paradox. Victory feels like progress, but it's actually the start of decay. Every time you figure it out, the brain stops scanning for new input. The system that made you grow becomes the system that traps you. That's why the monthly audit isn't optional. It's survival. It keeps your mind flexible, your ego small, your awareness alive. It's how you carry the winter mindset into every other season. Write, question, reopen. Every 30 days. It's not glamorous, and it won't feel exciting, but it's what keeps you sharp when everyone else starts coasting. Because once you stop checking, comfort starts creeping. And here's the part nobody talks about. Success makes you forget pain. It rewires your memory. You remember the result, not the discipline that built it. you forget how much resistance it took to become this version of yourself. And so you start cutting corners, skipping rituals, trusting old files again. The same arrogance that kills warriors in battle starts killing your awareness in peace. That's why the greatest minds in history practiced humility on purpose. After every triumph, they questioned themselves harder. Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor of Rome, ended each night writing questions, not declarations. Da Vinci filled notebooks with doubts. Einstein kept searching for equations that could disprove his own theories. They didn't audit their failures, they audited their wins. And that's what separates the ones who peak once from the ones who evolve forever. They never let success become their coffin. So remember this: spring is not the reward for surviving winter. It's the test of whether you learned anything from it. When life warms up again, don't let comfort lull you to sleep. Don't let "I've got this" become your final thought, because the moment you believe you've arrived is the moment you start walking backward. In the next and final section, we'll close this journey, not with more habits, but with a shift in identity. Because Shoshin isn't just a mindset you practice, it's a way of being, a lifelong strategy for staying alive in every sense of the word. The lifetime edge, living in beginner's mind. Here's the truth: most people never realize self-improvement is supposed to end, not because growth stops, but because the idea of improving implies that something is broken. The beginner's mind, Shoshin, isn't about fixing yourself. It's about seeing yourself clearly enough to realize there's nothing to fix, only layers to uncover. Once you get this, life stops being a performance and starts being practice. When you live in Shoshin, every day becomes training, every mistake becomes data, every success becomes a test. You stop chasing the feeling of transformation because you understand transformation is never supposed to feel good. It's supposed to feel real. Most people chase results because results make them feel secure. They want to be the disciplined one, the focused one, the productive one. But that's not growth, that's identity. Addiction. They build cages out of compliments. They defend their progress like a lawyer defends a case. And before they realize it, they've stopped growing altogether. But when you embody the beginner's mind, you shift identities completely. You stop being someone who improved and start being someone who is always improvable. That single change is the ultimate advantage, the lifetime edge. Because while everyone else spends years defending who they've become, you'll keep evolving quietly, endlessly. Let me put it this way: the expert seeks confirmation. The beginner seeks confrontation. The expert wants to be right. The beginner wants to see what's true. The expert builds systems that protect their certainty. The beginner builds systems that challenge it. The difference is subtle, but it's everything. You see it everywhere. The artist who keeps reinventing himself long after fame fades. The fighter who still trains like a rookie even after winning titles. The leader who questions his methods at the peak of success. These are the ones who never plateau because they treat mastery as a moving target. To live this way, you have to detach from the illusion of arrival. Stop asking, "When will I finally get there?" There is no there. The road doesn't end. The journey is the practice. As Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki said, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few." That's not just a quote, it's a warning. The more you know, the smaller your world becomes. But the more you question, the wider it gets. Every day you walk into the world with Shoshin, you're choosing to stay awake while others sleep. You're choosing awareness over comfort, truth over validation. This mindset turns even ordinary routines into sacred rituals. Making coffee becomes meditation. Listening to someone becomes discovery. Working out becomes exploration. You stop trying to prove and start trying to see. And that small shift changes everything. Because what you begin to realize is that certainty was never power. Awareness was. Certainty blinds. Awareness sharpens. Certainty hardens the mind. Awareness keeps it alive. When you live like this, failure stops frightening you. You stop running from mistakes because you understand mistakes aren't setbacks. They're signals. They show you where the file is still closed, where your awareness needs reopening. You stop saying, "I failed," and start saying, "I learned." And that's the real secret. The beginner's mind isn't about humility. It's about freedom. When you no longer need to defend what you know, you're free to experience everything again. The world becomes alive, unpredictable, endlessly interesting. You start noticing the small things, the texture of air before rain, the rhythm of silence in conversation, the moments you used to scroll past. So here's your final practice, the only one you'll ever really need. Every morning, pick one thing you think you're already good at, something you've done 1,000 times, a skill, a conversation, a routine. Then ask one question: what am I not seeing? Not what's wrong, not what to fix, just what's invisible, because I've stopped looking. Do that once a day. That's all, and over time, you'll feel something strange happen. Awareness returns. The fog lifts. Life stops feeling repetitive. The ordinary becomes fascinating again. That's when you'll know you've stopped living as an expert and started living as a student of existence itself. So this winter, and every season after, don't chase new hacks. Don't add new layers. Don't perform new versions of improvement. Just keep reopening the files. Keep questioning the truths you've already labeled. Keep walking like you've never been here before. Because the world belongs to the ones who still look up at the stars and whisper, "I don't know." And maybe that's the only kind of mind worth keeping.